The Silent Colony. The approach to Outpost Delta 9. The Valkyrie, a deep space reconnaissance vessel, drifted toward the derelict outpost like a moth drawn to a dying flame. Commander Jareth Voss stood at the observation deck, his gloved hands clenched behind his back. The colony's lights were dead, its solar panels cracked, and the comms tower bent at an unnatural angle, as if something massive had brushed against it. "Scans show no movement," Sergeant Cale Morrow reported, his voice filtered through the helmet's comms. His cybernetic eye whirred, adjusting its focus. No heat signatures. No power fluctuations. Just silence. Dr. Leora Tanis, the team's xenobiologist, leaned over the sensor array. "That's not right," she muttered. "Backup generators should have kicked in. Even if the colony failed, there'd be residual energy. This looks like..." She trailed off. "Like something sucked the life out of it," Voss finished. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Delta 9 had gone dark 3 weeks ago. No distress call. No debris. Just gone. And now, floating in the abyss, it waited for them. The first step inside. The airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor frozen in time. Frost coated the walls, glittering under their helmet lamps. The floor was littered with discarded tools, ration packs, and bodies, Tanis whispered. The first corpse was slumped against a bulkhead, its face twisted in terror. Ice encased its open mouth, its fingers curled into claws. No wounds. No signs of struggle. Just frozen. Cale crouched, his rifle scanning for threats. No blood. No burns. What the hell kills like this? Voss moved ahead, his boots crunching on frozen condensation. "Fan out. Secure the command center. I want answers." The control room's secret. The command center was a graveyard of dead screens and toppled chairs. A single monitor flickered, casting a sickly green glow. Nyx, the ship's rogue AI fragment, had piggybacked on their systems. Its voice crackled through their comms. "Found something. Audio log. Last transmission." A grainy image appeared. A scientist, face streaked with blood, gasped into the camera. "They're in the walls. They eat the noise. Stop talking or..." The screen cut to static. Tanis's breath fogged her visor. That log was timestamped after the colony's power grid failed. "That's impossible." Cale's grip tightened on his rifle. "Unless whatever killed them left something running." The first whisper. Then the lights died. Not just the command center, the entire outpost plunged into darkness. Their helmet lamps flickered, then dimmed to a faint glow. A sound echoed through the corridor. Not a scrape. Not a footstep. A whisper. Voss's blood turned to ice. It wasn't in his comms. It wasn't in his helmet. It was inside his skull. Jareth. A voice he hadn't heard in years. His daughter's voice. Tanis grabbed his arm. "You heard that too?" Cale's cybernetic eye flared red. "We need to go. Now." The walls begin to move. They ran. The corridor stretched unnaturally, like a nightmare. Behind them, the metal walls rippled, warping as if something pressed against them from the other side. Then the screaming started. Not from the team. Not from the corpses. From the walls themselves. A chorus of voices, some human, some not, wailed in unison, a sound that vibrated in their bones. The frost on the walls cracked, forming fractal patterns, spreading like veins. Tanis stumbled, her glove brushing a frozen corpse. Its head turned toward her, its mouth moving silently. "They're coming," it mouthed. Voss yanked her forward. "Don't look back." The escape. They reached the airlock just as the corridor behind them collapsed, the walls folding inward like paper. Kale slammed the seal shut, his hands shaking. The Valkyrie's engines roared to life. As they pulled away, the outpost's comms tower suddenly activated, blasting a signal directly at them. A voice, not human, not machine, filled the cockpit. "You should not have listened." Then, silence. Voss stared at the frozen faces of his team. What the hell was that? Tanis wiped sweat from her brow. Something that doesn't follow our rules. And in the darkness of the cargo hold, something scratched against the interior of a storage crate. The Hollowing's feast. The Valkyrie's engines groaned as the ship made its desperate return to Outpost Delta 9. Commander Voss gripped the pilot's chair, his knuckles white. Behind him, Dr. Tanis monitored the fractal infection spreading through their systems, both technological and biological. The patterns now glowed faintly beneath Kale's skin, pulsing in time with his erratic cybernetic eye. Nyx's voice crackled through the ship's speakers, more distorted than before. "The rift is expanding. We have approximately 47 minutes before containment becomes impossible." The AI's holographic form flickered, its edges dissolving into static. The descent into madness. As they docked with the derelict station, the airlock doors opened to reveal a nightmare. The frozen corpses were gone. In their place stood something else. Humanoid shapes formed from the same fractal patterns that infected Kale, their movements jerky and unnatural. They turned in unison as the team entered. Tanis's medical scanner beeped frantically. "They're not alive," she whispered. "But they're not dead either. They're echoes." Kale's rifle whirred to life, but Voss stayed his hand. "Don't," the commander warned. "Sound feeds it." The things didn't attack. They simply watched with hollow eyes as the team moved deeper into the station. The walls had changed, the metal warped into impossible geometries, folding in on itself like origami designed by a madman. The heart of the rift. The science lab where the colonists had first opened the rift was now the epicenter of the transformation. The dimensional gateway pulsed like a living thing, its edges defined by crackling energy that hurt to look at directly. Strange lights swam in its depths, forming shapes that almost made sense before dissolving again. Nyx materialized beside them, its form barely recognizable. "The hollowing is just the beginning," it warned. "Beyond the rift lies the true horror, the thing that imprisoned it here." Tanis approached the containment console, her breath fogging in the suddenly freezing air. "There might be a way to collapse the rift from this side," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. "But we'd need to dash." A sound cut her off. Not a whisper this time, but a scream, Lieutenant Vey's scream, coming from everywhere at once. The fractal humanoids twitched violently, their mouths opening in perfect synchronization. The truth revealed. Kale staggered as his cybernetic eye overloaded, showing him flashes of the colonists' final moments. They weren't experimenting, he gasped. They were trying to close it. The rift opened on its own. The station shuddered. From the rift emerged tendrils of darkness that weren't quite matter, moving with terrible purpose. The hollowing was coming through. Voss made his decision. "Tanis, start the sequence. Kale, with me, will buy her time." As the two men turned to face the approaching horror, the walls around them began to whisper in the voices of everyone they'd ever lost. The hollowing wasn't just feeding, it was learning. And it had learned exactly how to hurt them most. The sacrifice. Nyx's form solidified one last time. "There's another way," the AI said. "I can destabilize the rift from within." Before anyone could protest, it surged forward into the gateway, its code unraveling in a brilliant cascade of light. The station shook violently as the rift began to collapse in on itself. The fractal humanoids crumbled to dust. The whispering grew to a deafening roar. As the team ran for the extraction point, Kale turned back for one final look, and saw something looking back. Not the hollowing, but something older, hungrier, watching from the collapsing void. Then the explosion hit, and everything went white. Aftermath. The Valkyrie limped away from the dying station, its systems failing. In the medbay, Kale's cybernetics finally went dark. Tanis monitored the commander's vital signs, her own hands now showing the first faint traces of fractal patterns. No one spoke about what they'd seen. No one needed to. As the ship drifted toward home, the comm system crackled to life one final time. A familiar voice whispered through the static. "You can't close the door forever." Then silence. The rift's price. The Valkyrie drifted through dead space, its hull groaning from the strain of escape. Inside the dimly lit medbay, Commander Voss watched the fractal patterns pulse beneath Dr. Tanis's skin, the glowing lines spreading like roots through her veins. Her hands trembled as she injected another dose of stabilizer, the only thing keeping the infection at bay. For now. Across the room, Sergeant Kale Morrow lay strapped to a medical bed, his cybernetic eye dark and lifeless. The Hollowing's whispers had stopped, but the silence was worse. His body was covered in the same crystalline patterns, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The infection spreads. Tanis studied the scans, her face drawn. "It's rewriting our DNA," she said, her voice hollow. "The fractal structures are replacing our cells, one by one." She pulled up an image of Kale's neural pathways, the patterns had reached his brainstem. Voss clenched his fists. How long? Days. Maybe hours. She met his gaze. "It's not just killing us. It's changing us. Making us into something else." The ship's AI, now silent since Nyx's sacrifice, suddenly crackled to life. A distorted voice filled the room. "You should have let me finish." Kale's eyes snapped open, his organic eye bloodshot, his cybernetic one flickering back to life with a sickly red glow. The visions begin. Kale sat up, his movements jerky. "I see them," he rasped. "The others. The ones who came before." His cybernetic eye projected a hologram, ancient ruins covered in the same fractal patterns, a massive rift pulsating at their center. Tanis gasped. "That's not human architecture." The projection shifted, a research facility buried beneath the ice of Europa. Scientists in containment suits studying a fragment of the same crystalline material now growing inside them. Voss's blood ran cold. "We weren't the first." The truth about the Hollowing. Kale's voice was no longer his own. "The Hollowing was never the enemy," he said, the words layered with something else. "It was a warning. A warden." The projection changed again, showing a vast, formless darkness stirring beyond the rift. Something ancient. Something hungry. "It's waking up," Kale whispered. Then the pain hit. Kale arched off the bed, screaming as the fractal patterns surged across his body. His cybernetic arm shattered, the metal twisting into the same impossible shapes as the walls of Delta 9. The choice. Tanis grabbed Voss's arm. "There's one option left," she said. "The Europa facility. Their research, they might have found a way to stop this." Voss looked at Kale, now convulsing as the transformation accelerated. "We'll never make it in time." Tanis opened a panel in her medkit, revealing 3 auto-injectors filled with a glowing blue liquid. "Stasis serum," she said. "It'll slow the infection. But it comes at a price." Voss understood. "How long?" "Years. Maybe decades. We'd be giving up everything." Outside the viewport, the stars seemed to pulse in time with the fractal patterns on their skin. The decision. Kale's scream stopped abruptly. His body went rigid, then began to change. His flesh hardened, taking on a glass-like sheen. His remaining eye clouded over, becoming a perfect fractal sphere. Voss made his choice. He grabbed 2 injectors, jamming one into Tanis's neck before she could protest, then the other into his own. The world slowed, then went dark. The last transmission. The Valkyrie's emergency beacon activated automatically as the crew entered stasis. The message repeated on every frequency, a final warning to anyone who might hear it. Stay away from the rifts. Don't listen to the whispers. And whatever you do. The transmission cut off abruptly. In the silence of the drifting ship, Kale's transformed body stood slowly. His new fractal eyes turned toward the stars, and the distant pulse of another rift, waking up. Whispers in the dark. The aftermath of Delta 9. The Valkyrie shuddered as it broke orbit, leaving the derelict outpost behind. Inside the ship, the air was thick with tension. Commander Jareth Voss sat in the dimly lit briefing room, replaying the final transmission in his mind. You should not have listened. The words slithered through his thoughts like a living thing, refusing to fade. Dar. Leora Tanis hunched over her datapad, her fingers trembling as she analyzed the corrupted files they had recovered. The colony's last experiment was a dimensional rift generator, she said, her voice hollow. They were trying to open a bridge to another reality. And they succeeded. Sergeant Kale Morrow leaned against the wall, his cybernetic eye flickering erratically. Since Delta 9, it had been malfunctioning, glitching at random intervals, showing him things that weren't there. Shadows moving where there were none. Faces in the static. Nyx, the rogue AI, materialized as a distorted hologram in the center of the room. The entity calls itself the Hollowing, it said, its voice layered with interference. It does not belong to our dimension. It was summoned. The first victim. Lieutenant Soren Vey, the team's pilot, had been silent since their escape. Now, he sat in the corner, staring at his hands. His fingers twitched, his lips moving in silent conversation. Soren. Voss called. No response. Then, without warning, Vey lunged. His hands clamped around Tanis's throat, his eyes wide and unseeing. They're here, he hissed. They're in the walls. Kale reacted instantly, slamming Vey against the bulkhead. The lieutenant thrashed, his strength unnatural. He's infected. Kale growled. Voss drew his sidearm, but before he could act, Vey's body convulsed. His mouth stretched too wide, his jaw unhinging like a snake's. A sound poured out, not a scream, but a reverse scream, a vacuum of noise that made their ears bleed. Then, silence. Vey collapsed, his body limp. When they checked his pulse, there was nothing. His skin was cold. Frozen from the inside. The fractal patterns. Tanis examined Vey's corpse, her medical scanner glitching as it passed over his skin. His cells are crystallized, she whispered. Like the colonists. Then she saw it. Beneath his sleeves, his flesh was etched with faint, glowing lines, fractal patterns, spreading like frost on glass. The same patterns they had seen on Delta 9's walls. Nyx's hologram flickered. The hollowing marks its prey. It is learning from him. Voss clenched his fists. Learning what? How to sound human, Nyx replied. The rifts echo. They traced the colony's research to a hidden lab deep within Delta 9's lower levels. The files spoke of an ancient signal, a broadcast from the edge of known space, repeating a single phrase in a dead language. We opened the door. We did not close it in time. Tanis's blood ran cold. This isn't the first time this has happened. Kale's cybernetics flared again, his vision flooding with static. In the distortion, he saw figures, shadows of people who weren't there, their mouths moving in unison. You hear them too, don't you? A voice whispered in his ear. He spun, rifle raised. No one. But the whispers remained. The choice. Nyx revealed the truth, the Hollowing was not the only entity. It was a prisoner, trapped in the rift by something far worse. And now, the rift was widening. We have two options, Voss said. We flee and warn command, or we go back and seal it. Kale's eye glowed red. If we run, it follows us. It's already in our systems. Tanis looked at Vay's corpse. And in our heads. The ship's lights flickered. The walls breathed. The hollowing was listening.